Brian Thomas Jr. has been putting together an impressive season that not many expected. Once viewed as a high upside developmental receiver, Thomas has quickly emerged on the scene, adjusting to the NFL in no time. While there are a lot of questions that surround the future of the Jaguars, one thing is for certain: BTJ is always open. So today, I'll discuss my thoughts on his explosive start and why he's here to stay despite all the doubt in Jacksonville. So for our first play, Thomas is going to be running a very simple curl route. So he's going to be lined up at the bottom of your screen here. He's going to come up field about 7, 8 yards, sit down right here. You're going to see him drift off a little bit to the sideline, just trying to kind of separate himself from where the cornerback is. Now, what's going to happen on this play is that, well, it looks like this might be man coverage here. There's actually going to be a swap in who's covering who. So you've got Christian Kirk lined up here in the slot. You got 39 on him. You got 47 on Brian Thomas Jr. So in the middle of this route, what ends up happening is that 47 is going to carry Christian Kirk downfield. 39 is going to swap late. So he's still going to be covering Kirk for a moment. That's going to give Brian Thomas Jr. some room to make the catch here. And eventually, Lawrence is going to find his read, and he's going to find him open for the play. So we'll go ahead and we'll let this play out. So you see they swap here. He's going to move to the sideline a little bit, take the catch, and then get some extra yards after the play. So just something I want to notice here and talk about, and this is one of your first things you'll learn with Brian Thomas Jr. watching him, is that, well, he is a big-bodied receiver, right? He's a really big player. He's like 6'3", 210 pounds. He doesn't really play like that necessarily, right? He has great size, but he's more of a shifty guy after the catch than someone who's just going to try to play bully ball after the catch. He's going to try to juke guys out. He's not going to really run through contact too awfully much. And when he does, he really just isn't maybe as powerful as what you'd expect from other big-bodied receivers that you'll watch. But that's one of the first things I want to note about Brian Thomas Jr. as a player, because he's a very unique X-receiver type of build. So something I want to discuss for a moment is one of the obvious negatives that you're getting right now with Brian Thomas Jr., and that is the regression of Trevor Lawrence in his 4th year in the NFL. Now, if you followed my Jaguars content on the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel, you'll know that Lawrence is on pace to shatter his worst completion percentage in a season. As of now, through 4 games, Trevor Lawrence has only completed 53.3% of his passes. And for those that will quickly mention the high drop rate that he's dealt with, his adjusted completion percentage is only 64.3%. This is over 8% lower than his rookie season under Urban Meyer in 2021, which we can see below here on our season grades. So this is a huge downturn for Trevor Lawrence right now. And another thing that I want to note, and we're going to see an example of this in just a moment, is the amount of turnover-worthy plays we're getting. Now, this is not a huge change from what Lawrence has done in the past, but you've still had more turnover-worthy plays than touchdowns on this season. And Lawrence has been fortunate for a lot of those to not actually end up being turnovers, but this can hurt Brian Thomas Jr. at times. And we're going to see this on the next play that we'll show. So on this play, Thomas is going to line up inside of the numbers and be assigned with what we're going to call a deep drag route. So he'll start to make his cut a lot further downfield than your normal drag route. So you're going to see him kind of cut inside a little bit here. He's going to turn around the 50, and then he's going to come wide open around here at the 45 of Buffalo territory. And this is going to be around where Trevor makes the throw here. So we'll go ahead, we'll kind of break down this play bit by bit as we watch it. Now, first thing I want to note before we unpause, the cornerback on him, 47, well, it's going to look like he's carrying him at first and trying to maybe protect more deep. He's going to end up bailing off of him and going downfield. This is going to leave Brian Thomas Jr. pretty much wide open on this play at a point, and that's going to be something that Lawrence is going to see throughout this play. So you'll see he's already coming downfield. Thomas cuts inside a little bit on this. You're going to see that turn right here. Now, there's going to be a huge gap that's opening in this area of the field. And Lawrence is going to start to notice this. He's going to be watching BTJ here. As he comes across and this defender's following, this is an easy throw, right? This is an easy 15-yard gain, bare minimum. Lawrence just has to make the throw catchable. That's really all he's got to do. So you're going to see him release here. Brian Thomas Jr. wide open. Sails it over his head into the hands of DeMar Hamlin. And you got a dead man getting his first interception ever. Now, this is kind of what we're talking about, where the Jaguars may not be the best team to have a lot of fantasy football players from, just with the situation there and with the 0-4 start and a lot of turmoil inside that building. And right now with the quarterback position. But what we're going to discuss a lot more as we look at Brian Thomas Jr. and his own statistics is that they have been trying to get him more involved. And this is going to be a little bit of a saving grace from plays like this, where it would appear that Brian Thomas Jr. is just going to get hung out to dry a lot of the time, or the throws aren't going to get there. But while we are concerned with this, he is still going to be a viable player each week in fantasy football. Now, taking a look at some numbers that would support our argument that he's going to stay heavily involved in things, and even if Lawrence is not going to become more accurate, he's still going to be a fantasy viable player. So Brian Thomas Jr., first 2 weeks of this year, he's getting 4 targets a game, right? And these were really important throws, and these were really big plays from Brian Thomas Jr. Against both Miami and Cleveland, Thomas is making plays that arguably sparked the offense, gave the Jaguars some life where they were looking lifeless. And even if they didn't win those games, I think it showed a lot to the team that they could trust a guy like this, that he is catching on quick and that they need to get him more involved. This was a quick takeaway from the fan base. This was a quick takeaway from really everyone involved with the team. And you see it start to really flip quick once we get into week 3 and week 4, where he's getting 9 targets in each of these games. He's got 2 of Trevor Lawrence's 4 touchdowns. Now, what is really impressive from Brian Thomas Jr. are the numbers with his deep receiving. He has gone 4 of 6 on his targets. He has 140 yards. He has 1 touchdown, no drops, and he has 2 out of 2 uncontested catches. When you see these plays on film, whether or not they're hit, and a lot of these that probably both of them, to be quite frank, that were not completed, were misses by Trevor Lawrence. Brian Thomas Jr. is getting separation on these plays. He has the speed to do it. He has the size to win in those situations. And so you're working with a lot here. And at the end of the day, like, you look at this situation, and even with Lawrence playing at one of his worst levels throughout his career, Brian Thomas Jr. is still viable because of how well he's performing on his end and how much this offense already trusts him and wants to get him involved in the game. Now, getting back to the film, we've got Thomas here running what's going to be another simple curl route. So he's really just going to go about 4 yards upfield and then make a turn right here where he's going to get the throw. What I want you to focus on with this reception is his ability to get yards after the catch. As you'll see on a lot of these plays, the cornerback is going to once again move off the line of scrimmage here as they get going, and he's going to give them a lot of room to work with, which I don't fully understand why they were doing so often in this game. You'll see him back off here, and Thomas has got a lot of real estate, so he's going to come wide open on this play. So he'll get up about to the 23-yard line. He starts at the 27, comes wide open, right? And you see the tackler coming into frame here, where you would imagine for a lot of players, he's going to get there in time. This is going to be, maybe a 5-6 yard gain if he can just fall forward. But what Thomas is going to do is he's going to be really quick at the catch. He's going to be able to turn up field really fast, and he's going to be able to shake off this tackler. So he's got the ball here, turns around instantly. Tackler's not ready for it. Ends up missing him here. And Thomas is going to manage to keep his balance, stay in bounds. Now he's got 2 guys that he's got to deal with. And like we've said before, he is not a super physical player. He is someone who is going to rather try to find a way to get extra yardage without really embracing as much contact. So you're going to see a lot of him like diving between defenders, doing that sort of stuff, and it's really effective for him. So here he's at the 15-yard line. He's got these guys coming up on him. He's going to split in the middle and fall forward for what is ultimately going to be 13 yards after the catch. So really impressive stuff there. I know that kind of glitched out. Knee goes down around the 10-yard line. But this is what you're going to see a lot of from Brian Thomas Jr. He's not just going to be a deep ball guy. He's going to be someone who's also going to get some receptions that are on shorter plays. That's going to be allowed to try to create after the catch and move the ball down the field for the offense in that way as well. One of the biggest strengths in Brian Thomas Jr.'s game is his great overall speed and acceleration. This allows him to create early separation and man coverage, and he forces defenses to respect his ability to go deep. Now, if you're going to line up an average athlete on Thomas, you're going to need them to press him. That's really the only way that they're going to win on these reps, because they're going to have to out physical him, because it's going to be difficult for them to stay in phase without doing that. What's going to happen on this play is that they're going to have Thomas run a simple slant route. So he's going to come upfield just a couple yards. He's going to cut right across the secondary, try to get open in the right corner of the end zone. And so on this play, the guy they've got covering him, for one, he's starting outside of him. This is a safety. It's Eric Murray. And he's not as athletic as Brian Thomas Jr. is, to put it simply. And so Thomas is going to easily be able to come open on this play against him, because he's just simply got to be in with speed. And the other factor is that the secondary is going to crash down on this play. So there's not really anyone helping out, and all Thomas has to do is simply outrun the defender for the score here, which you're going to see he does with ease. Immediately open. Lawrence is going to see it, fire, easy pass, touchdown. Your team just got 6 points. So one of the biggest knocks that Brian Thomas Jr. had as a draft prospect was his limited route tree at LSU. You'd hear people say that he could only run 3 routes and he was going to struggle to expand in the NFL. Well, think again, because one of the biggest areas of improvement for Thomas this season has been his nuance as a route runner. He came into camp struggling early on, but as time went by, he was clearly a better player. It's something that's showing up on film, and it's something we're going to show you in what was one of his best routes of the year. So what he's going to do here is he's basically going to be trying to get downfield, get vertical, and find a way to get open against Kamari Lassiter. So he's going to run about 10 yards here. He's going to try a little bit of a stutter step here, or a little bit of, we'll call it the fake, right? He's trying to make it appear as if he's going to make a cut. Once he does that, he's going to break downfield again, start to fall towards the sideline, and then see if he can get open in the end zone. So watching this play now, this is some really great stuff from Brian Thomas Jr. So right off the bat, you're going to see Lassiter's given a lot of room here. It's about 10 yards. Thomas is going to stop here. Now watch Lassiter's reaction. Now keep in mind, Kamari Lassiter, one of the things that was notorious with him during the draft process this year was his 40-yard dash. There was a bunch of speculation that when he ran as pro day, that he was running a 4.6. And while he's been pretty good this year, that's a big concern. And so you're going to see Lassiter just completely bite on this play. He comes to a stop. He's almost moving downhill. And by the time he's done that, you're going to see Brian Thomas Jr. just completely sails by. He's going to be wide open here for a touchdown. So tons of separation. You're going to see Lassiter even get into him a little bit. Lawrence has released this throw. Good anticipation there to see he was going to get open, see the good matchup. However, unfortunately, you're going to see it's going to go well over his head as we get this video glitching out a little bit. We'll try that again. Misses him by probably about 3 or 4 yards here. Would have been a touchdown, would have been a big play. Thomas ran a great route. Unfortunately, you get the one big issue you're having right now, which is the quarterback play in Jacksonville. So Thomas ends up with an incompletion, unfortunately, on that rep, but really good route. And I think this once again hits on the upside if things start to get figured out in Jacksonville, which is still very much a possibility. Now, on this final play, Thomas once again shows off his massive improvement as a route runner. He's going to be lined up once again against Lassiter, but this time he's going to show even more detail to his route. So, what he's going to be tasked with is what's going to be a dig route. So, he's going to come about 10 yards upfield. And he's going to cut inside here and try to get separation across, hoping there's no defenders covering, and try to get a big completion for maybe 15 yards or so. So, that's the goal on this play. So what you're going to see is that he's going to start first by choosing what we're going to call an inside speed release. So Lassiter is lined up right in front of him. He's going to attack the inside shoulder. And what happens here because of that, you're going to see Petrie here, number 5, nearly going to collide into Kamari Lassiter on this play because of where Thomas chooses to go. Now, the other side of this and why Thomas is going to choose to cut inside is because he's going to get leverage on this route, right? He's going up against a player who can't match his athleticism, and he's going to be releasing inside after this, or we'll say cutting inside. So he's got a really big advantage on this route. Now, thankfully for the Texans, these guys do not run into each other, and he's able to stick with Thomas here. But what Thomas is going to do, and you'll see this whenever we get to his cut, he's going to flash. He'll look outside. So he's going to make it look as if he's going to cut towards the boundary, which may not be the best sell, but it's at least something, right? You're trying to throw this defender off. So he's going to flash his head outside. And as he does that, he's going to put his foot in the ground. He's going to cut inside. He's going to put up a lot of separation here. So you'll see this here. Flash his head outside. And then he's going to cut inside. We'll show that one more time since that kind of slowed down. So a lot of separation at this point. And your only defender who's really in any kind of position to attack Thomas here is already having to follow Gabe Davis upfield. So he's going to come open unless, I guess this defender's here too, but he would have to give up the coverage here. He's not aware of what's going on behind him either. So Lawrence is going to see this. He's going to throw, and this time he's not going to overthrow him. So good completion. It's a lot of yards for the Jaguars. And you see how it works, right? When Lawrence can be accurate, Thomas is always open, it seems like. He is going to be a huge part of things if these guys can just get it together completely and have the accuracy issues taken care of. But really nice play from Thomas. Not a whole lot after the catch. Credit to Lassiter for a really good tackle, but still the damage was done with about a 15-yard completion. So what are my final thoughts on Brian Thomas Jr.? Well, I think he's a high upside wide receiver that's already showing tremendous progress and results in a bad situation. In PPR format, Thomas has averaged 14.5 fantasy points a week, ranking as the wide receiver 14 on the season, entering week 5. With how poorly things have gone in Jacksonville, it's hard to imagine Thomas takes any sort of dive in production. Thomas has already become Lawrence's favorite target, and he's the kind of player the Jaguars have to rely on heavily to try to spark a turnaround. It's also worth noting that the strength of Jacksonville's offense often comes in its passing attack, and they found themselves in game situations that rarely warrant a run-heavy approach. If you've got Brian Thomas Jr. on your fantasy squad, hold on to him. He's an arrow-up kind of guy with tremendous promise. If he's on their roster, maybe shoot some offers and see if they're willing to budge. Brian Thomas Jr. is here to stay as a great wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside if the offensive struggles are resolved. So with that all said, I appreciate you guys checking out this film breakdown. If you've enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content as we continue to push it out during the season. If you're a Jaguars fan watching this, check out my own personal channel called Cardiac Cats. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.